Welcome to the Art of Healing podcast, the podcast that is dedicated to helping you connect with your mind, body, and spirit. This is Charlyce, physician and Reiki master, and thank you so much for joining me. I would like to remind you that although I'm a physician, the information you receive in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. You can find my full disclaimer at my website, www.healingartshealthandwellness.com. If you like what you hear on this podcast, sign up for my weekly newsletter. Check your show notes for more information and for the link to sign up. Thank you. Hello, and welcome back to the Art of Healing podcast. This is Charlyce, and we are going to close out the month of September a little differently than we've done with all of our shows. So I usually like to close the month with a meditation. However, I thought it would be nice this month to do something a little bit different. So we're going to do bibliotherapy. So I'm going to share with you some of my favorite readings, passages where I find inspiration. And as you listen, you can simply just stay tuned in. You can use it as a form of meditation. And I'll make sure to share my reading list from books that I have found inspirational and have altered my path. I first heard the term bibliotherapy when I was doing some training in lifestyle medicine. And ironically enough, although I found reading for myself therapeutic, I simply just had not thought of it as therapeutic in the form of you could actually name it. But bibliotherapy is using reading as a form of healing. And wherever you are on your path, I suspect you've probably done the same. So during this podcast, I will read passages, share books I find inspirational, and maybe towards the end, you can shoot me a message and tell me what you have found inspirational. Maybe we can share and help each other on our light paths. So the first bit of reading we will share is going to come from Hands of Light, A Guide to Healing Through the Human Energy Field. The author of this book is Barbara Ann Brennan, and I first discovered this book during my Reiki training, and it ended up being a guiding light for me and part of my awakening, maybe, as far as what's possible in our lives, what's possible in healing. And I was probably drawn to this book because Barbara Ann Brennan had a scientific background, having been a scientist at NASA before she left her career there and became an energy healer, going on to found her own school, multiple best-selling author. This passage in her book is called How Healers and Physicians Can Work Together. With healers and physicians working together, it is possible to take advantage of the best of technology and the best personal attention available for each patient. Let us see how it would work. Healers can assist physicians in the three ways mentioned in the introduction of this section. They are giving a broader view of the causative factors involved in any illness, providing information that cannot be obtained through the present standard methods or that cannot be obtained by those methods in the time required, and providing laying on of hands to balance the energy system of the patient and to enhance and accelerate the healing. Many times, the last effort helps the patient gain the strength necessary to save his life. In clinical practice, the healer can work directly with physician and patient in making the first diagnosis to pinpoint the problem, give an overall view of how the energy system is out of balance, and thus how serious the problem is, provide a broader view of the causative factors involved, and work with the patient on the meaning the illness has in his life. The healer's method of diagnosis will be discussed in the next chapter. The healer can receive recommendations through the use of high sense perception about the kinds of amounts of specific drugs to be taken, supplementary healing techniques, diet, food, supplements, and exercise. The healer can follow the case with the doctor and again through the use of high sense perception, make the recommendations as to how the dosage and other supplements need to be changed week to week, day to day, or even hour to hour. In this fashion, the healer and the physician can work together and achieve a level of fine-tuning in the care of the patient never imagined. The healer can observe the patient's energy field to tell how the drug or the other healing methods used are affecting the patient overall. So that is one of my favorite passages from Hands of Light. And for me, in my personal healing journey, as well as working with my patients and clients, Hands of Light has become a reference. I often reference this book. So I'll put that citation for that passage in the show notes. The next passage I'd like to share comes from a second book that has become a reference for me, having read the book through, I think, twice now, and a place that I typically refer to when I do want to reference various healing modalities and to just deepen my understanding. So the author is Dr. Richard Gerber, and the book is Vibrational Medicine, the #1 handbook of subtle energy therapies. I also discovered this book immediately after my Reiki 1 training, and I found reading it to answer a lot of the questions that I often had and would have never asked anyone in traditional medicine about what I was observing. So the passage I'll read from this book comes from the chapter Vibrational Medicine as the Spiritual Science of the Future. The future vibrational physicians will be more than doctors who dispense pills and potions. They will be healers and sensitives. They will diagnose the emotional imbalances and bioenergetic disturbances which may eventually manifest as illness within their patients. They will be able to identify those biopsychoenergetic factors which can predispose to sickness and assist their patients in preventing illness by teaching them to modify these elements of imbalance. Physicians/healers will instruct their patients in ways that promote greater wellness through improved nutritional and exercise habits, healthier patterns of emotional response, stress reduction techniques that promote relaxation, and self-awareness meditations which help an individual discover the real cause of their disease and distress. So what I like about this, or I should probably say was most inspired about this passage, is my first time when I was reading this book, it truly answered many of the questions that I had. I found Reiki through a dear friend of mine, and I don't want to name her because I think she's an introvert. I don't know that she'd like me calling her out, but it was actually her idea to do Reiki 1 together. And during that training process, it was such an eye-opening experience to learn that there was this subtle energy world that not only influenced, but it really created the matrix of what formed our physical bodies and how we could develop disease in our relationship with our external world, in our relationship with ourselves, and our disconnect from our spiritual selves. So in this passage, the first time I was reading it, it really struck me that we would get, as a practicing physician, I would get beyond the point of pills and potions. The first time I read that passage, it was probably within about 3 or 4 months of my Reiki 1 training, and very early in my evolution as a person and as a healer. And I took so much comfort that if I stayed on this light path, I would have more options to help not only myself, but my patients. Because during that time in my medical practice, I did often feel like the pills and the potions were all I had to offer. And when I'm working with my patients, 95% of them truly needed something more than that. Granted, a prescription would help them, but since most of the problems I was dealing with and deal with now are chronic, it just didn't seem right that the only treatment option I had was a prescription and there should be more. So that passage clearly heavily influenced me. I hope you enjoyed it, but be future vibrational physician. The next passage I'll share comes from A Course in Miracles. So A Course in Miracles is a course, it is a book, it is a website. The authors of A Course in Miracles are Doctors Helen Schuckman and Dr. Bill Thetford. And it is a publication from the Foundation of Inner Peace. And it's a combination of their work together as well as from channeled guidance that came up with this great work. Although I'm quoting this book in open disclosure, I'm actually still studying A Course in Miracles. And it's actually a practice that I take on every year, that I start with the daily practices with the intention of doing them every day for the next year. I haven't made it completely through a year yet. I think my last run I may have gotten today 170. But one passage I do want to quote in there that I find comforting. I hope that intuitively it makes sense, although if you haven't read A Course in Miracles, the terminology and the references can be a little confusing, although your intuition and it may sink into your heart. So we'll share this brief passage. It is from Chapter 1, The Meaning of Miracles, Part 1, The Principle of Miracles. And this is Part 1.19. Miracles make minds one in God. They depend on cooperation because the sonship is the sum of all that God created. Miracles therefore reflect the laws of eternity, not of time. So from this passage, and again, I know that it doesn't have its full impact and meaning without having gone through the entire Course in Miracles. But this particular passage I find comforting because one of the precepts in A Course in Miracles is questioning the role of time and questioning the importance of time to us as humans, and how once we make certain steps to move beyond our humanness, we embrace forgiveness and miracles become part of our world, that time no longer exists and everything we experience becomes eternal. Very big concept. So again, I hope that in your heart it makes sense without us having gone through all of the important concepts of A Course in Miracles. But that passage referencing that, once we connect with God and we embrace miracles, time no longer exists, and we all exist in a state of eternity. The last passage I'd like to share comes from the author Frank Arjava Peter. He is an author, Reiki master who practices in Japan. And this passage comes from his book, Reiki Fire, New Information About the Origins of the Reiki Power, a complete manual. The passage I'll share from this is the 5 Reiki precepts and sort of, their guiding light. And of all of the passages I share today, this is one that is frequently part of my life, part of my daily mantra practice, part of my meditation practice. So the author is instructing us on the 5 Reiki precepts, so I will start reading from there. They should be spoken daily, once in the morning and once in the evening. Number 1, don't get angry today. Number 2, don't worry today. Number 3, be grateful today. Number 4, work hard today. Number 5, be kind to others today. The ultimate goal is to understand the ancient secret method for gaining happiness, Reiki, and thereby discover an all-purpose cure for many ailments. If these principles are followed, you will achieve the great tranquil mind of the ancient sages. To begin spreading the Reiki system, it is important to start from a place close to you, yourself. Don't start with something distant, such as a philosophy or logic. The 5 Reiki precepts are part of Reiki training, but once I learned them, I felt that they really could be something that's shared with the masses, and that it doesn't necessarily need to be something you only can learn in your Reiki practice. I believe the origin of the 5 Reiki precepts comes from, I want to say, a 5th century Japanese emperor. But those 5 precepts are great. They're a great way to approach your daily life. They're a great way to approach your work, your relationships, your play, your healing time, your communications, not getting angry, not worrying, being grateful, working hard, and being kind. The important thing with these precepts is that they emphasize today. So it actually has the precepts I interpret as a built-in forgiveness factor, that we are acknowledging the fact that being human, living during this time, interacting with others is stressful and it can be difficult, so that we do our best for today. And if for reasons in our control or out of our control, we could not do our best today, when we start our day the next day, we can try again to embrace all of those precepts. Thank you so much for joining me for this bibliotherapy session, which just sharing the passages that I found inspiring, I hope has helped you feel the same. In your show notes, you'll see ways that we can stay connected. So you can sign up for my weekly newsletter, which I always send out a copy of the podcast as well as other resources and information. You can also get a link to see past episodes, and especially in this past year, we've had fantastic guests. And in the show notes and was my email, if there are passages, books that you've read that you found inspiring and you'd like me to spread the word, share them with me. Shoot me an email, send me a message on social media. Share with me anything that you found that you'd like to share with others, because that's how we all move forward. We share our knowledge. We share amongst each other. One of my favorite practices. So absolutely, if there's something you want to share, send it my way and I'll help spread the word. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Art of Healing podcast. Once again, this is Charlyce. You can find out more about me at www.healingartshealthandwellness.com. Did you know I have a blog as well as online courses? Check your show notes to sign up for more information about healing arts, health, and wellness. Thank you. Please feel free to share this episode with your friends, family, and loved ones.